Right. I've fucked the first topic off because I'll do that later. The first subject matter today on the agendum is how to keep training. Now, you're all athletes, and we all know the importance to maintain recovery and keep training. Geordie, what do you feel are the most important parts of allowing your body to train, cycle to cycle, day to day, week to week?
That's a very good question, Uncle.
Thank you.
So, for me, I think it's important to maintain a consistent dialogue with you about, how things are feeling.
Do you do that?
Yeah.
Do you?
I would say.
When was the last fucking update that you gave me without me prompting?
Right, okay. Right. Well, my uncle's talking about text messages here.
That's right. Readiness. State of readiness message.
Which I'm not very consistent with.
Very inconsistent.
Yeah, but I pop my head in the office and give you like this,
Like this afternoon after training, you mean?
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
A viewer, he gave me the, fucking body was beaten up today after training, not before.
Yeah.
Allowing me all the time to create an intervention of sensibility and rationale.
Which you have done for the next week.
That's right, I have.
Not through dialogue.
Not through dialogue.
Of ourselves.
So what do you feel is important, Jordan? When it comes to readiness?
Right, yeah. I'll go back from the top. So I think it's important to know what can get in the way of your training in terms of what injuries are frequent with yourself. So for me, it would be my knees, and then learning more about how you can manage those injuries or problems that can occur when you are under fatigue, and creating appropriate prehab things that you can do to prevent those things from occurring at your toughest points in training.
Cheers, George. Leah, what about yourself?
I think for me, recovery is probably the most important part of being able to keep training consistently. I feel like sleep is the biggest thing for me. Getting enough sleep, like 11, 12 hours a night, is pretty bang on for me.
Wow. 11 or 12 hours? That's half the day.
I need a lot of sleep to recover.
But
I find for me that's one of the biggest things that helps me get over that training fatigue.
And of course, sorry, Leah, you're going through a little bit of a change in pattern, as it were, through. Is it a knee tendinopathy? Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
And so we've adjusted training to keep training, and this the title of this segue is how to keep training. So we're keeping you training by doing what?
Well, a lot of the adaptation at the moment is avoiding full depth squats and lifts.
Yeah.
That's what aggravates my knee the most at the moment. So I'm doing a lot of power variants. I'm doing box squats, lots of pulls, just to keep moving, really.
And are you seeing new potential being elevated as a result of these other interventions that keep you training?
I think the biggest thing for me is if I can maintain a good percentage on my powers, and I can still induce training fatigue in some form, then I know that I'm maintaining my strength for the full lift. I'm not sure that I feel like I'm seeing like a new horizon at the moment, because I guess it's been going on for such a long time now, this knee injury, that it's starting to feel quite limiting.
Can I add a little segue here? Didn't you have a PR power clean from a pause position?
I did. That's correct. Yeah.
Isn't that a new level of preparedness? Dare I argue?
Yeah. No, that's true. I agree with that.
Yeah.
And that was quite motivating to be able to achieve that, and it wasn't far off my best power clean actually. So
yeah,
that was like a peak in performance a few weeks ago, which was really positive.
Great, Captain. What about yourself?
What's the question?
How do we keep training? How do we manage our body? Your body's been subject to a few early adaptation stresses.
Mine is a little bit different. Mine would probably be the whole day before my training session. Sleep as well, like Leah. That's a massive part.
Are you a 12-hour sleeper?
I'm not a 12-hour sleeper, no.
How much do you get up there on the fucking mountains?
I'd like to say I'd like 6 to 8 hours.
Yeah.
And if I don't get that, probably mentally would affect me the next day.
Yeah. Is anyone at risk if you're not getting sleep?
Very much so.
Yeah. Catherine's got a bit of a temper or a high emotional state when sleep is not induced.
So.
And what about your body? How's your body adapted to weightlifting? Because you're sort of 3 or 4 years in the sport now. What are the common niggles?
My back is my biggest thing, squatting, which we've slowed down a little bit in the last couple of months. When
she says slows down, what do you mean? Define.
Well, we stopped.
Yeah.
We stopped it, and then we started it again, but gradually, and I don't get any pain at all now.
And there's that, is it the quad? Yeah, we have to manage that as well. Yeah. So I think all these areas...
Stick into a program as well.
Stick to the program, yes.
It's quite important.
Stick to what's written. And then go from there. Otherwise, how do you know? What if you're adding to your program or trying something out, then it could well be that was the lift too far, as it were. And of course, where was my thought there? My thought was going to be somewhere along the lines of how do your Jody, your niggles are well known to you. You get a trap, a neck, you get a knee. There's certain things that that are markers in your training that will arrive at certain points. And what we're doing is hoping they will come in at heavier loads because we know they're coming. We just want to try to get them delayed and get them in a bit later if we're not managing them,
Yeah, they're inevitable. The niggles you face in training they're gonna come out at some point. I think an important thing to note is the more technically proficient your training is on the whole, the less these niggles will occur. And we've noticed that in times where the quality of training has slipped, the niggles have been more prominent, and that may be the cause of the other, or vice versa. But it's important that the training's of the highest quality to give your body a fair chance of staying out of those niggles. But the priority is always to keep training, as you said. How do you keep training? A week off because of a bad knee or a bad back or something is far less than ideal. So it's about trying to preempt those and put things in place that can keep you going through the door every day and doing some form of training.
And that may mean, viewer, that you need to be sensible and adjust a midweek day, so you take a lighter day and allow the body to recover in the week, intra-week. Or you need a light day on a Monday if you're particularly sore or stiff from the previous week's training. So it needs to be an adaptable process as your body is getting into certainly more challenging cycles as the weight gets heavier and such. Leah, do you have a series of niggles that sort of come back? Are they repeat things?
It's always been my right knee that's been the problem for me.
Why is that, Leah? What happened to that knee?
So back in 2012, I ruptured my anterior cruciate ligament and tore my meniscus playing football, and had that reconstructed twice. So it's always kind of been in the background, I guess, since that's happened. I guess aside from that, I've also had problems with my wrists and having stress fractures in my wrists as well. And I can think back to a few times where my training volume was so high and I was training on wrists that really weren't happy about it. But I think that's where that mindset of being an athlete, that you try and sometimes push on through injuries, where really you should sit back and be a bit more sensible and take your coach's advice to go a bit easier, kind of comes into play.
And you're an industry professional, Leah. You're a sports physiotherapist and rehabber.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help you?
I guess it's like a kind of Jekyll and Hyde kind of scenario where it's this constant cognitive dissonance between knowing that you should take rest from the side of you that is the sports physiotherapist, but then as an athlete wanting to push on and kind of knowing what your limits are in terms of pain tolerance.
quite
so
so.
I've always found that it's quite a battle for me, even with the side of me that knows what I should be doing.
I always forget which one's which in the fucking Hyde Jekyll business, but basically the athlete beast takes over, logic and reason goes out the window, and the determination to perform comes to the fore. So we get emotional.
That's correct.
Captain, you're a fairly emotional person. How does your emotion interfere, perhaps, with the days where we should take it a bit lighter?
Interfere?
Well, does your determination to want to do the work get in the way of sensibility, and you saying, well, perhaps I should take a lighter day today?
Yeah, I think it probably does.
Yeah.
I think my mind thinks I should just power through.
Yeah.
When I shouldn't sometimes.
Fair to say that is probably a very common happenstance amongst athletes.
I'm getting better though.
Very much so.
I'd say that's the biggest thing that athletes go through, is learning how to
it's okay to
separate, soreness from injury, or general fatigue from actual niggles. And it's something that we've learned through the years. It's like, the program isn't set in stone, it's not gospel, and doing a Wednesday session at the expense of your physical wellness, and not being able to come in on a Friday and do your Friday session because you've done that extra set of squats that you maybe shouldn't have done. It's knowing how to make those calls. But then again, as Leah's pointed out, it's extremely difficult to make those calls in the heat of the moment, because the athlete inside you, you feel like you're gaining an edge by putting yourself through the pain and the discomfort. Would you agree with that, Leah? Do you think you've learned, through the years of lifting, how to make that decision easier, or would you say it's still as difficult as it was?
Yeah, I definitely feel that I've got better at that, and I think it comes down to, like, you have to have the experience of pushing yourself through an injury to see the effect that has on the long term. And I don't really feel like you can call yourself a true athlete unless you've been through that experience of being injured and having to recover from it. And now that I've had that experience quite a few times, it's a lot easier for me to kind of see that taking 2 to 3 days of easier training is far better than having out weeks in the long run. But that just comes down to experience, I think.
Didn't we go through a very light phase a little while back, Leah, before you did your remote, was it English qualification thing or something like that?
Yeah.
Was it? And I remember you messaging me a couple of weeks before the day where you had to go and film the lifts, as it were, saying that, I haven't lifted heavy, what the fuck's going to happen? And well, you don't swear that much. I do. I'm sort of paraphrasing you. What's going to happen? And then we just brought in some heavier lifts. We started at 80%, went to 85%, and then all of a sudden, what happened?
Well, out of the blue, I had PRs in both lifts. So I snatched 96 and clean and jerk 124.
Congratulations.
And it was completely unexpected.
By you, not by me.
Yeah, that tends to be the case, though. I think I doubt myself quite a lot.
Yeah.
But again, that I think it comes with the territory, and it comes with developing that experience. And something we've spoken a lot about is the reality of my belief and being able to attribute reality back to things that I've done in the past. But yeah, it was a strange experience for me to have that period of training where things were lighter, and I definitely panicked kind of 3 to 4 weeks out of the championships, thinking that I hadn't done enough heavy training to constitute lifting heavy on the day, but things turned out okay. And that for me was a new experience that it gives me confidence, knowing that in the future, if I have to take times of easier training, that I'm not going to regress too much and that I'm still going to maintain a good amount of strength.
That's right. And I think that's a very important thing for athletes to experience, is a multitude of different ways to get to preparedness for competition, or in your case for a qualification total that you had to put together. And there isn't one way. There are many different ways. We don't always use the many ways because generally we want the body to be fit. We'd be using more of a classical template, if you like. But there is an alternative, and the alternative for yourself was we weren't doing any squatting either. So we took your biggest weapon. We didn't take it away. It was removed from you because of the injury, and it was all light. But that didn't make any difference to the outcome. The outcome was still 2 personal records in a garage, not ideal conditions, no atmosphere, and you still produced it. Yeah, Captain. When you've been coming back from stresses, the quad that's kept you awake at night, not just the full moon, when you've been unable to traverse the mountaintops looking for victims, God bless them, how is that for you in terms of your mood when you come into training?
It was remember the first competition I did, and my legs were really painful. I used to cry, didn't I, most sessions. And I didn't think I'd be able to do it because I thought taking the squats away I wouldn't be able to lift anything. But it was totally different then, the next competition, wasn't it? I didn't get any pain at all. Yeah. So yeah, it definitely affected my mood. It was awful. Yeah. I felt it was awful, but looking back, we just adapted it.
That's right. And I think that, early on when you begin lifting, it's important to go through training cycles and understand the process of keeping training. And if there is something that interferes with that element, as in you have to lighten the load or stop squatting or, go to power variations or whatever it is, that really, provided you keep training, you can get it back all the way through to competition. Do you remember, like we talked about in the last show, episode 1, viewer, about Malaysia, where you didn't do any lifting up until about 3 or 4 weeks before that competition. And when you did lift, it was fucking light, but we squatted and pulled a lot, and you still went out and broke the Commonwealth Youth record, hit PBs, won gold, like a fucking champion.
Yeah, and those experiences teach you that in training that you see is less than ideal, it can still provide, it can still produce results. And you take the squat away because of bad knees, and you as an athlete, you're constantly doubting the fact that you're able to lift more than you ever have done because you haven't been squatting the numbers that you used to squat, or whatever it may be, or vice versa. You can't do the lifts because of your bad wrist, and all you're doing is squatting and pulling, and then you're questioning your technique, and you almost feel like you forget how to lift. But you've got to remember that you've put the time in as a weightlifter before that point. You're competent in the sport. Trust the process, and remember that these injuries aren't negatives. If they're positives, if you want to make them positive, it's an opportunity to work on different attributes and different parts of your training that you wouldn't necessarily do.
That is very true. That's the part of it that I enjoy as a coach, is to think differently, have a different strategy, and then work on the areas of potential that are available that classic snatch, clean and jerk, squat, pull perhaps wouldn't offer us. And so there we are, viewer. What you can take away that is sometimes you might need to sleep 12 hours a night, but you do need to keep training, and you need to recover, and you need to know your body. You need to communicate with your coach very well and remove the emotion away from your decision making, which will allow for reason and logic and evidence. Excellent.